Hi, I'm Brian Jordan, and you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
So I got a call that said, this is Susan Bailey. And I said, yeah, but I'm sorry, I don't know a Susan Bailey. She goes, I'm Henry Aaron's secretary. And I went, yeah. She goes, Henry would like to talk to you. I said, yeah, okay. And he said, how would you like to fly down to Sarasota and look at our pictures? And I said, I would love to. He said, well, when can you do it? Jokingly, I said, tomorrow. He goes, okay, we'll take care of that. I'll meet you at the airport in Atlanta. Susan will have the arrangements. And then I get on a plane with Hank Aaron and fly down to Sarasota. He offers me a job, and I said, well, what team do you want me to manage? He goes, no, he wants you to be a pitching coach.
Hi, this is Phil Necro. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Most guys throw it this way. Put the ball back in here, hands come around, and these two fingers come into the ball, and stiff wristed, no follow throw, and just a little up and goes in the bat. I hope there's no rotation on. The ball comes in there and doesn't bother. It doesn't never do the same thing twice.
This is Kyle Wright, and you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
One of my favorite moments for your career as of right now is actually this past week. It was a show of confidence by Brian Snitker. He left you in the game after bases were loaded. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it was really cool. I went back and I saw that clip on Instagram several times. I'll be honest, I watched it numerous times. Kind of gave me chills a little bit. It was just really cool. I was kind of lost my command a little bit there. Still made some good pitches, but was definitely getting a little tired. So whenever he said basically left me in the game, I felt like that kind of gave me what I needed to get me over the hump to make a good pitch, get a ground ball back to me, and get out of that inning.
This is Matt Olson. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond. Yeah, it's a pretty cool experience. Not everybody gets this opportunity to kind of set up their roots and be somewhere long term that they grew up and have family and friends. So it happened pretty quick there in spring training, and it was just an opportunity that my wife and I and my family thought that we couldn't pass up. So just jumped on it, and it's been a blast.
Says, Chief, why don't you race Ralph Garr? I said, okay. Said, Ralph Garr wants to race you too. So we started on the first base line on the outfield line. We started, bam, took off running. I beat him by 3 foot.
Mike Fulton here. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
I'm Kelsey Wingert, and you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Hey, this is Andrew Jones. You're watching On Deck with Tyler.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome into On Deck as always. Thank you so much for checking out the channel. Really do appreciate it. While you're here, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on, of course, here at On Deck and all across Major League Baseball. We have quite a bit to talk about tonight. Of course, the Braves coming off of a huge win over the Milwaukee Brewers in large part due to Ozzie Albies' bat late there in the 8th inning. That was a great thing to see, especially after he was, I think, 0 for 7 before that, so at least in the series. So great thing to see there, and hopefully that'll start the Braves back on a similar tear to what they were doing prior to the All-Star break. They are certainly still within contention. I think that's an understatement. The Braves are have absolutely killed it this so far this season, which means going forward they don't necessarily have to play as hard, or let me rephrase, they don't have to win as many games as a lot of other teams do. Currently they have an 11.5 game lead in the NL East. That is over the Phillies. The Marlins are tied with the Phillies, so again an 11.5 game lead over both of those. The Mets are hanging tight at 18 games back, in the Nationals 23.5 games back. That's always a great thing to hear, but there are a lot of concerns with the Braves, right, ahead of the trade deadline. We've talked about them pretty extensively here on the channel, and most of them surround the bullpen. Some of them, in totality, they surround the pitching as a whole, because the bullpen has question marks, no doubt about it. And I would even argue that the starting rotation has question marks as well. We all know about Fried and Wright being out. I think we're all very aware of that. But going forward, how solid are the Braves going to be able to be, and how soon will we see Max Fried and or Kyle Wright return? All those questions matter when it comes to the trade deadline. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about what a show Austin Riley has put on here lately, and we'll give you some stats that you may or may not know. And of course, we're also going to talk about our good buddy Fred McGriff making it into the Baseball Hall of Fame, rightfully so, and it's about time. We're all going to talk about all of that tonight. And of course, we are also going to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about in the comments, so make sure to drop a comment if you have one. If you want to drop a super chat, that'll put you first in line, and I will tell you guys, we are on a short time tonight. We are not going beyond 9 o'clock. So if you have a question, get it in. I will answer it to the best of my ability. If you have a trade proposal, I will do the best of my ability to get it answered. If I don't have an answer for you, I'll do my best to have one next time we do a stream. All right, so let's talk about what has happened since the game today. Of course, again, the Braves win 4-2 over the Milwaukee Brewers today. That's a great win for them. Of course, great moment for Ozzie Albies being able to come in clutch late in the game and perform. That said, after the game, a couple of moves were made. The Braves acquired Yonny Chirinos off waivers from Tampa Bay and optioned Michael Soroka to AAA, along with designating right-hander Seth Elledge for assignment. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Yonny Chirinos. A lot of folks are looking at this move a little bit crooked. Hey, what are we doing here? Here's my thought on it. I don't think there's anything wrong with going out there and seeing what's available, especially if you're just trying to bridge the gap for Max Fried and Kyle Wright being out. And I think that's what they're doing. I don't think Yonny Chirinos, unless he just comes to the Braves and has a resurgence, just a great comeback from what he's done so far this year. He hasn't been terrible. I should say that so far in 2023. He's been all right. He's got around a 4 ERA. He's 4-4 on the year. I think he's been, fairly okay. He's had 15 appearances, thrown 62 innings. What that tells you is he can give you some length. His strikeouts per 9 is very low, 4.5. Don't expect him to blow you away, but he does give you length, and that is something that the Braves do need right now, especially if they're not going to trust Soroka going forward for the time being, although I don't think this is the end of the road for Michael Soroka in a Braves uniform. That said, Yonny Chirinos, I believe, is actually going to be a fairly good move in terms of what I just said, length. They're going to need it. And we did get an update about Max Fried. His last rehab start will likely be, this is according to Mark Bowman, will likely be on Wednesday in Jacksonville. That will also double as Minter's first rehab assignment there Tuesday in Jacksonville. So hopefully that gets both of those guys, both of those lefties back to the Braves sooner rather than later. No word on Wright. We just know that he's gearing up. That's really all we're hearing there. I wish I could give you something a little bit more solid, but that's what we have. I also wanted to talk about a guy who came out. I've seen it in the chat already. I want to talk about this guy because he came out and threw an excellent inning tonight. Daysbel Hernandez. And a lot of folks, he's going to catch you off guard. He's not a name that's, going to jump off the page. But he's a guy who I was impressed with tonight. He threw, 3 strikeouts in his MLB debut. How often does that happen? They selected him last night. This is his MLB debut, and he was lights out. So I think if he can be something, that catches other teams off guard, just like he caught some Braves fans off guard today, it's something that could go very well. He also earned the win today, so that is something to keep in mind too. A good appearance by him. I hope that maybe he could be someone we can go to. He is right-handed. We've done a lot of talk about left-handed pitching on this channel just because there hasn't been a ton of left-handed pitching within the Braves organization this year, A.J. Minter being the sole bullpen option there as a lefty. And I think they're going to target lefties at the trade deadline. We've talked about that specifically. If you haven't seen it, which I think most of you probably have, if you haven't seen it, go check out my Josh Hader video. I still think that's relevant. I still think they very well may be in on that. But if there is a lefty reliever out there that might be available, I definitely think Alex Anthopoulos is going to take the phone call. I'd be surprised if he didn't. So just keep that in mind. But no, the real concern right now, without a doubt, is pitching. Not just relieving, not just starting. It's pitching as a whole. Because your starting rotation, as good as it's been this year, has definitely taken a couple of steps back. Number one, Michael Soroka didn't exactly turn out like we thought. Colby Allard got hurt. Obviously, Max Fried and Wright have been hurt for the majority of the year. Also, Bryce Elder, had a couple of bad starts prior to today in his last few. So good to see him kind of get back to where he needs to be. But the starting rotation is not as foolproof as it has been for the first half of the season. Now, granted, in the first half of the season, a lot of problems probably got overlooked by us on the outside because the offense was just absolutely ridiculous in the first half of the season. So I think a lot of the problems that we would have put under the microscope, we kind of just looked over. And not to say that, Bryce Elder pitched fine for the first half of the season. He's had the best ERA in baseball there for a while. Charlie Morton has been excellent in his last few appearances. Strider is, he's been good most of the time. He has a couple of bad outings here and there, but he has been very good this year as well. But that's kind of where it stops. After that, a lot of question marks come around. That's why I think this move with Yonny Chirinos happened. That's why I think, we may see another move like it. The trade deadline is the end of, exploring options. So don't be surprised, if you see that. I think it's coming up very soon. It's only 2 weeks away. I think, keep up with your Major League Baseball rumors. I've been keeping an eye on that as well. I haven't seen anything Braves related, but keep an eye on it. I definitely think the Braves are going to be exploring, and I think there's going to be some sellers. The White Sox, I think, are sellers. The Cardinals, I'd be surprised if they weren't sellers. I think the Padres very well may be sellers or maybe should be sellers, one or the other. But I think there's going to be some teams out there that are willing to deal. And I think the Braves have a couple pieces that they could put in a trade and maybe land somebody that's going to have an impact. That said, let's go ahead and talk about, just the trade deadline as a whole. Because a lot of people are talking about, hey, what do we need? What is the need? No doubt in my mind, it is still bullpen. Number one is bullpen. And if you don't believe me, go take a look at the stats. Because, yes, the Braves, according to ERA alone, have one of the best bullpens in the game. But there are faults. You have no left-handed pitcher in your pen right now, which is not a very good thing going forward. It's certainly not a good thing come postseason. So I think they're definitely going to go look around and see what they can find. And a lot of people are pointing to the starting rotation. Tyler, why would that not be the priority? Simply put, the starting rotation, you're getting two back very soon. Yonny Chirinos is a bridge. That tells me right there they're not targeting at the deadline. Because if it's me, Yonny Chirinos is a bridge to get you to when Max Fried comes back and when Kyle Wright eventually comes back. Maybe even not that far. It might just be till Fried gets back. You're going to need a couple of starts. You have a couple of days off. Yonny Chirinos is the guy to move it along. Now, the argument could be made, Tyler, why not just go with Soroka there? Soroka has not had a super great year. Chirinos was available. He's on waivers. The Braves didn't lose anything in this deal. They picked up what remains of his salary, I guess, but it's very little that they're losing. It's kind of just take a chance. Maybe we can get a couple extra wins. The Braves don't have to really make an astronomical deal at the deadline. They don't have to do it. Like I told you earlier, they have an 11.5 game lead in the NL East. Not to say that means that they're in a shoe-in win. I don't think that at all. I think they have to carry it through the end. The NL East can be very competitive. That said, they have a very good chance at winning this division, and there's no real reason to shake things up. I don't think you see a major deal for a Shohei Ohtani, for example. I don't think you see anything like that. I think what you see are what I would call complement moves. I think you see moves that complement the team. Relievers, typically, that's what that means to me. Maybe utility players. But we don't need a big bat. We don't need a big starter. And typically those moves don't usually happen at the deadline anyway, at least for starters. Left-handed bats you might be able to find. That said, I don't think that's where we're at. I think we are basically at a point where the Braves need to make a couple of moves to strengthen their pen, maybe strengthen their utility, but that's about it. The depth is what I'm looking at. And the relievers that we have are good. There's not a reliever right now that I'm like, oh man, why is he still on the team? Right? Everybody has those guys that they pick out that they can't stand. I don't think we have any of those guys. Most of the guys we have been very good. I really like what we see out of Ben Heller. He's been a nice surprise, but there's other guys too. I mean, we were talking about Daysbel Hernandez. Rysell's had a pretty good year. Joe Jimenez can give you some length when he needs to. Tonkin has been very good when he needed to be. That said, even the guys that we were looking to count on going into this year haven't exactly been there. I mean, Jesse Chavez is on the IL. I think he got moved to the 60-day IL not too long ago. That said, I really think the Braves are going to target bullpen. And again, if you're wondering who I think the Braves will go get, I did a whole video on it, and you can go check that out. Basically, what I did, I made 2 videos, actually. I cut one down for you. I did a whole video analyzing what I think the Braves are, like how teams should look at the trade deadline when it comes to relievers. Relievers to target at the deadline is the video that's out there. You should go check it out. It pretty much illustrates how I did the search, how I found the guy that I think they're going to go after. That guy being Josh Hader. I see there Charles Pruitt. That guy is Josh Hader. I think they go for it. Now, that said, that doesn't mean the deal happens. I just think it would be insane if Alex Anthopoulos isn't at least on the phone scoping that one out, if that makes sense. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. Stars have to align, that kind of thing. But I definitely think the Braves would be interested. And I would be surprised if the Braves don't target Josh Hader. Believe it or not, I was one of the first ones out there saying Josh Hader. I purposefully put that video out there because no one else had done it, to tell you the truth, in a lot of ways, but also because I think that can actually happen. I was just one of the first ones to it. I think the Braves very well should pursue Josh Hader. That's what I think. I think they should pursue it. Does that mean it will happen? No. But I think they definitely need to go and at least take a peek and see what it's going to take. Because I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you're telling me you can get Josh Hader for Vaughn Grissom, I'm doing it. And a lot of people are like, Tyler, that's not Alex Anthopoulos' MO. And most times, I would agree with that. The difference is this team can compete this season for a World Series. There's no question about it. And the one thing they're missing is a solidified bullpen. And he's only on a 1-year deal, which makes a trade more likely. Hader will be traded. If the Padres have any, intelligent life over there, he will be traded. It would be dumb to keep him. They have no chance at winning their division. I think there's still 6 or 7 games out of the wild card. There's no sense in keeping him through the end of the year, paying him another $7 million and not getting anything for him come free agency. It would just be a dumb thing to do. Does that mean it will happen? Not necessarily. I mean, we've seen teams do this before. Remember Trevor Story a few years back? So, I mean, things like that do happen. But I would just be surprised if the Padres didn't look at what they got right now and say, hey, let's go ahead and trade him before it gets to be, to a point where we don't get anything out of it. At least the Braves, if we trade him, number one, they won't have to pay him the whole, yearly salary of $14 million. They'd only have to pay him a little more than $7 million. For the rest of for the time he put in for him this year. The Braves would have to pick up the rest of the tab. But I definitely think that can happen. Also, for the Braves, where is Vaughn Grissom going to go in the next couple of seasons, right? I mean, I think at the beginning of the year, you wouldn't have believed me if I had told you that Orlando Arcia was going to be an all-star and was going to be putting up numbers like he's put up this year. That said, does that continue on? I don't know. But it makes Vaughn Grissom's chances of getting to that spot even harder. Because one thing Arcia does do very well is play defense. And that's something that doesn't slump. And to be honest with you, I don't know that Grissom has – it's hard to tell, right? I mean, when it comes to Grissom, we don't know what he's looking like defensively unless you're one of those people that goes to the Gwinnett Striper games every day. I mean, you don't get to see the development. And unfortunately, neither do I. So I'm not speaking that he can't do this. I'm just saying being as the current situation stands – it could be seen as a chance for the Braves to send him somewhere where he does have a chance to play. Now, granted, the Padres are loaded with Xander Bogaerts and whoever else. But that said, I think it'd be a good change of scenery. And you know what? The Padres may develop him into a left fielder. The Braves could keep him and develop him into a left fielder. Eddie Rosario's contract does end at the end of the year. They may re-up it. Darno got re-upped for next season the other day, which I think is a very good move. But, when it comes to Grissom, I suggested the idea a couple of seasons, I guess last year, about converting him to a left fielder when Ozzie Albies eventually returned, because the defense, wasn't terrible, and his bat was there. It seemed like it was ready, but then his offense fell off, right? The growing pains are there. I don't know that the Braves are still in the spot where we're playing that game, where we're, all right, well, yeah, he's young, he'll develop, keep him here. The Braves are in a spot now where they are winning every year. They are going to the postseason every year. And if they can get something like a Hader, that, let's be honest, I know Hader had that postseason moment with Freddie Freeman. Let's look past that for a second. But wouldn't it be nice to be able to go to Hader in the bottom of the ninth in Game 7? Wouldn't that be a good feeling? Or even if, bottom of the eighth and up by 1, you can bring him in to shut a threat down. I mean, that would be something that I think would be very beneficial for the Braves. I would just be surprised if they at least weren't in on the conversation. That's my take on it. All right, let's go ahead and talk about Austin Riley, because I really wanted to talk about this too. Austin Riley has been absolutely phenomenal in the past week. He has record straight 5 games, let's go ahead and talk about Austin Riley. Let me rephrase. Austin Riley has been absolutely phenomenal this past week. He has a record 5 games straight with a home run. Sorry about that, guys. Let's go ahead and restart that. Austin Riley has been absolutely phenomenal this season. He has got a record 5 games straight with a home run, 6 homers in a span of 17 at-bats. He's the first Brave to ever do that. He's one of 10 Braves who have homered in 5 straight. Hank, Chipper, Rogers Hornsby, Acuna, Brian McCann, Ozzie Virgil, Jeff Burrows, Joe Aduk, and Eddie Miller. Sorry, name I didn't recognize. He's one of only 10 Braves to ever do it. So it's something special. It's something I really wanted you to leave with, and I think it's I hope it continues. Austin never really went on a tear in the first half of the season, so it's nice to see it really pop off now. Lastly, I wanted to talk about, of course, Fred McGriff going into the Baseball Hall of Fame. This is something that I have been on the case of for a few years. I've thought Fred McGriff belongs in the Baseball Hall of Fame. He's one of those Braves that he should have been in a long time ago. And I did a whole video on that, how he should have been in well before this. He's got almost 500 homers, 493 to be exact. He's got multiple seasons with 30 homers, consecutive seasons with 30 homers, and he did it clean. I think if he had been on one team his entire career, he would have been in the Hall of Fame a decade ago. I don't think he would have had to wait very long. It's a nice feeling to finally see him enshrined there. And I think he belongs there. The next one that I think belongs there, of course, we all know Dale Murphy, Andrew Jones, Billy Wagner. There's so many former Braves that I think belong in the Hall of Fame. And I know Billy Wagner didn't spend a lot of time in Atlanta, but he is a former Brave that I think belongs in there. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of players that I think belong in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I would argue Don Mattingly. I mean, there's a lot that I would argue, not to mention the ones that are on the outside of the steroids situation. Pete Rose, there's a lot of those guys that I think belong in there. It's a shame that life has kept them out. But there's guys that did it the right way. There's guys that don't have one scratch on their record too. I've done a whole video on the Hall of Fame being broken. And what I mean by that, and I'm going to go ahead and just give you my case on it, the Hall of Fame, I do believe is broken. And if you're asking what do I mean by that, if you look at the Hall of Fame, you have 2 camps of voters. You have voters who believe steroid users don't belong in the Hall of Fame. And whoever you are, it's fine, but these are the 2. And you have people that don't necessarily make that the deciding factor, right? Barry Bonds, yes, he more than likely did steroids. It's never been confirmed. I'm not going to confirm it here. But he's never been confirmed. But he's also, according to stats and according to, frankly, the eye test, one of, if not the greatest hitter of all time. And he's not in the Hall of Fame. When your Hall of Fame does not have the home run leader, the guy that does have the most MVPs of all time, the guy that has the most Cy Youngs of all time, in Roger Clemens, the guy that has the most hits of all time, in Pete Rose, I begin to question what the Hall of Fame represents. I love the Hall of Fame. I've been there multiple times. I absolutely love what it is to the sport. I respect it. But the voters have kind of hacked the system, and it has really bogged the system down. What do you mean by that, Tyler? Well, basically, if you look at the Hall of Fame ballot, there are a lot of guys on there, at least right now in the past few years, that undoubtedly did steroids. Not going to name them. You know who they are. But they undoubtedly did steroids. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. And Pete Rose was the opposite. Pete Rose never even got on the ballot, right? And whether you agree with that, disagree with that, doesn't matter. But he never made it onto the ballot. The steroid users are on the ballot, and because they're on the ballot, they pick up votes. But they take votes away from guys like Andrew Jones, guys like Billy Wagner, guys that were on the fringe, to maybe make it into Hall of Fame, but they play clean. So to me, it's either you're either in the Hall of Fame or you're not, right? If you're not, if steroid users don't belong, take them off the ballot. But now we only had 2 inductees this year, Fred McGriff and, of course, Scott Rowland. And I am all for it being tough to make it into the Baseball Hall of Fame. I think it should be tough to make it into the Baseball Hall of Fame. But I also think there needs to be a criteria. It's very subjective. Curt Schilling, regardless of how you think about him, I think Curt Schilling belongs in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I think it's a shame that he's not in there, because I don't know about you, but when I watch the Bloody Sock game, I see a guy who's pretty legendary on the mound. That's how I view it. To me, it's so, I don't even know the word for it, but it's so just kept to a limit. And, it skipped a generation. You go to the Hall of Fame, there's a whole decade of just no representation. And the flip side of it, and I know I'm kind of going on a rant in here, but the flip side of it is I've been to Cooperstown, like I said, twice. I've been there twice. If you go to the museum, Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Jose Canseco, A-Rod, whoever you can think of, Curt Schilling, whoever you can think of, they're all over the museum aspect of Cooperstown, okay? They're the same building, the same exact building, but they are not in the actual hall. There is a literal wall keeping them from being in there. And to me, especially when it comes to like that of Pete Rose, you got to let it happen. That's my opinion as a baseball fan. And I'm too young to have remembered watching Pete Rose. But the guy that has the most hits, that will die having the most hits, belongs in a Hall of Fame. There's no question to me about that. And that is something I will stick to. That said, did he make mistakes? Sure. But he's got a lifetime ban. He's 80-something years old. It'll be a much better speech if he's there to give it. That's all I'm saying. That's how I feel about it. Do I think everybody belongs in a Hall of Fame? No. There's got to be a cutoff somewhere. But I also think that there needs to be a decision made and a clear criteria, because for the writers, it's a lot. There's a lot of splits there. There's a generational gap. The older guys don't vote for the steroid users. The younger guys do. There's all kinds of things. And I think it's a flawed system. And the older I get, the more instances I see where someone who should have been in long ago isn't in. Fred McGriff is a very good example. The only thing working against Fred McGriff is that he played for 4 different teams. That's it. Everything else, clean as a whistle, almost 500 homers, one of the most consistent bats ever. He's in there now, but not through the writer's ballot. And he should have been in a long time ago. He never got close to 75. Andrew is finally climbing up the ranks. But I think there needs to be, and I'm not the guy to make the decision. Let me make that clear. I'm not that guy. But there definitely needs to be, look, and if you don't believe that the Hall of Fame is flawed, I'm not even looking at the comments right now. If you don't believe that the Hall of Fame is flawed, answer me this. Why are there committees now trying to, the Veterans Committee, why are we creating that? If the Hall of Fame writer's ballot is perfect, why are we creating the Veterans Committee? Am I happy they did? Yes. But if it's perfect, why make it? That's my point. And I think baseball knows it's a flawed system. And they're going around it. Now, does that mean I think Barry Bonds should just walk in the Hall of Fame and be in it? No. But again, from a certain generation, he was the best baseball player alive. And it wasn't close. And, you're ostracizing a lot of people that grew up watching him, from the fan perspective. It is what it is. That's my take on it. I think I hope one day it'll be back to what it was 20, 30 years ago, where you didn't really question it. Like, you could debate, oh yeah, he should be in the Hall of Fame, but you didn't have the steroid situation looming, right? Like, and I'm not saying all the steroid users should be in, but all the steroid users didn't have the numbers to make it either. I don't think Mark McGwire really touches it, unless you want to make him, in the Hall of Fame for the few seasons that he was, lighting it up. But there are some guys that just simply belong. I shouldn't have to tell you. Roger Clemens was a Hall of Famer before steroids entered the picture. Barry Bonds was an elite hitter before they entered the picture. And he also has the most homers ever. I'm not saying he's the home run king. That guy back there, if you can see him, is the home run king in my opinion. But that said, I do think having the most says something. And, we'll see. I love the Hall of Fame. I, support it. It's not the Hall of Fame itself. It's the system that votes for it. But that's the end of my rant. We're going to talk about what you guys want to talk about. We got about 20 minutes, but I'm here to talk about, again, whatever you guys want to discuss. And please do send whatever you got in there. And remember, Super Chats do get priority. Newman dropped a Super Chat a little bit earlier on. Sorry, I was in the middle of a rant, Newman, but thank you for that. He says, chop on. Couldn't agree more. All right, let's go ahead and jump into it. William, how's it going? Philip, how's it going? Nicholas, how's it going? Corey says, I went to the game on Wednesday for Ron Gant bobblehead night. He is my favorite player ever. Wonder how many people remember him. Well, if you don't remember him, I believe he's doing the news now for Fox 5 in the mornings. So you know him through there. He's a 30-30 man. I know who Ron Gant is very well. Yeah, I actually want that bobblehead. If anybody's got an extra one, send it my way. Let's see. Philip Moore. What do you think about a trade for Hader? Giving up Grissom and Soroka? We need bullpen help in the worst way. Agreed. Completely agree. Giving up Soroka, I don't know how much worth is there, as much as I hate to say it. I don't know if another team looks at Soroka the way we do. I look at Soroka and I see what could be. I think a lot of other teams look at him and say what he used to be, right? What he has been. In terms of getting Hader, though, I definitely think it's possible. I think it very well may happen. In fact, I said this before, but again, this is for, who asked me this? This is for Philip Moore. I'm dropping a link for you in the chat. Did a whole video on Hader. Make sure to go watch that. Would really appreciate it. And, of course, share it with whoever needs a reason to think we can go get Hader. I think Vaughn Grissom and a couple low-level pitching prospects could do it, because the real key to getting Hader, the real appeal for it for the Padres, is that they're not going to spend the cash on him for something that's not going to result in a postseason appearance. That's what I think. Do I think they're going to get Soroka, or do I think they're going to trade Soroka? Not necessarily. I think they probably will trade Grissom at some point. The value's too high right now on him for it to ever be any higher. I think you strike now. Does that mean it'll happen? No. But I definitely think he's going to be moved. I would just be very surprised if he wasn't. That said, I don't think Soroka will be. Pete Draper says the Braves win and the crime dog is enshrined in baseball immortality equals the best weekend ever. It's certainly up there. I was at the stadium a few years ago when Chipper got inducted, and that was a cool weekend too. So yeah, the Hall of Fame is actually always around my birthday. My birthday is actually Thursday of this week, so Chipper got inducted I think a day after my birthday. I think it was on 28th of July. So anytime we're at the game around my birthday, there's a chance that the Hall of Fame is going on. And for the past decade or so, it's been every year. It's before this year, or before the past couple of years, it was, Smoltz was going in, and then Bobby Cox was going in this 2014. Maddox was going in, Gladwin was going in. So it's been, a long stretch where we always had guys going in, and it always was around my birthday. It's a cool moment. Any Braves fan for a long time has been on the case to get McGriff in. I'm just glad he's finally making it. Let's see. Nicholas says Mets are like 17 and a half games back. They're actually 18 games back. Yeah, that's pretty funny to me. I am trying. I'm not gonna say that. I'm trying to get someone on the show, Mets related. I'm just gonna leave it at that. We'll see what happens. We do have a super chat. Maverick Sports. So the Braves got right-handed pitcher Yanni Chirinos off waivers from the Tampa Bay Rays. They DFA'd Seth Elledge. Also DFA'd Eli White after they upped Elledge. What gives? I think it's, whenever you make a move, somebody has to go, I don't really know, to tell you the truth. It's kind of that lower level tier. It's not something that I've really given a lot of focus on. But that said, I definitely think, when it comes to Yanni Chirinos, I think it's a deal where they need to get through the next couple of weeks until they get freed back, until they eventually hopefully get right back. I think they're looking at him getting back around September. So I think Chirinos is just to kind of give him a couple more weeks. Eli White, I don't really know. I can't really speak on it. I think that was more of a, we need someone to send down. Corey, maybe. But Eli White was, he had a torn labrum. I think it's, that happened. And, of course, you have to make a move. You have to make a corresponding move. I think that's where we're at. Vision says, hey, Tyler, any new thoughts on Ohtani? I didn't think he would be on our radar, but I've seen a few sports writers this week who seem to think so. All right, here's what I'm going to say. If you see, I'm about to be very, very, how do I put this? I have to be careful with what I say here. To me, I don't think they have a shot. Not because they don't have a shot, but because they're not going to go for it. They certainly have the finances to potentially offer. They have multiple things working against them. Number one, Ohtani really wants to be on the West Coast for a couple of reasons, namely being the fact that it's a much shorter flight to Japan. Not to say that that's everything, but that's a big one. Aside from that, the $600 million figure and above, I'm turned off of. I'm turned off at $400 and above for anybody. But I think there's to me, there's no chance. I would love it. I would absolutely love it. I think it would be great for us. But I don't think it's, a lot of people are picking on me saying a hater is not Alex Anthopoulos' MO. I don't think Ohtani is Alex Anthopoulos' MO. I don't see it happening. In terms of the other writers that are out there that are saying it, the ones that I've seen, I've read their case. I get it. I just don't see it happening. And that's really just my gut feeling. And I mean, Vision, you can ask yourself, and however you feel about it's however you feel about it. I'm not questioning anybody that's saying that. But to me, a lot of times when people are posting Ohtani carries with it a lot of clicks. That's what I'm going to leave you with. And I know that because I do this. Anytime I talk about Ohtani, you can go look at the views. They're up there compared to some of my other stuff. It carries clicks. And that's a good thing, but anytime you see it, it's where's the facts, right? Like I try to present any case, I don't really present it with rumors, right? Like the hater thing I dropped a couple of weeks ago, I didn't go in there saying I'm hearing that this is happening. I'm hearing that the Brewers, the Padres are talking to the Braves. it was me looking at what the Braves needed, looking at who's out there possibly going to be sold. That was pure speculation on my part. But there's a lot of guys out there that are going to just try to get you to click and say the Braves and Ohtani and get you to try to click it. That's out there. That's real. And as someone in the chat said, it's clickbait, right? So just be careful. Again, it's not impossible. I just don't necessarily believe it's going to happen. I think, number one, he's going to pick somewhere on the West Coast. The Angels may not deal him because he packs their ballpark out every fifth day. I certainly don't believe we're going to go get him in free agency. I don't think we're going to pay him what he wants. If it's the deal he's on right now, maybe for the remainder of the year, but then you throw in all the other factors, I just don't see it. I also don't see him. I don't see the Braves being a good fit. You know, I just don't. I don't think the pitching and hitting thing is going to happen in Atlanta. And, you know, I could be wrong, but why change what's working? The Braves do they still have the most wins? I think they do. They have the most wins in baseball. They have an 11.5 game lead in the NL East. And this isn't at U-Vision. Believe me, it's not. This is at the folks that are putting this out there. I just don't understand why do that. It's working. The offense is not the problem. The starting pitching is not the problem. When you get Max Fried back and Kyle Wright back, it's not the problem. The problem for me is obviously is obviously bullpen. It's obviously the bullpen. So to me, I'm looking at the deadline going, hey, we don't have much to fix, but if we could go get Hader, that would be great. If not, can we get a couple of solid bullpen pieces? That's kind of the way I view it. And that's my opinion, right? Like all these other guys out there that have their opinion, they have them. But I'm telling you, Ohtani brings in a ton of clicks. That's what I think most of them are, and that's my opinion on it. Someone feel free to disagree with me, but I don't see it happening. I just don't. And I have answered, ever since I put out the video where I said Ohtani, we're not targeting Ohtani, I have gotten all kinds of arguments about it, right? And most of them circle around, well, because I don't think the Braves are going to pay this money. I just don't. Most of them are saying, that Ohtani would make the Braves more successful. Okay, I have questions about that. If that's the case, why haven't the Angels been to the postseason with him and Trout? It doesn't work that way. You need a team. The Braves are a team. Just like Corey Carter says, Ohtani is 29 too. I don't want to pay him on a long-term deal, so the free agency thing to me is out of the question, especially for $600 million. And then I get the argument saying, hey, so what if you pay him $600 million? He's going to give you back $1 billion in revenue. Now, is that guaranteed? Because if that's guaranteed, forgive me, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that's guaranteed. Number one, if he gets hurt, well, there goes that. There's so many questions. Plus, when you pay someone $600 million, you're talking about two $30 million players across 10 years, right? What if he gets hurt and he can't pitch or hit? What happens then? Right? You're just out $600 million and you're out a starting pitcher and a left fielder, let's say. I don't see the point. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's a feature piece. Now, I say all that to say, if he wants to take less money and come to the Braves, if he wants to take, and this is just me going for it, if he wants to take $200 million for 10 years, maybe. But I already know I'm going to get all kind of backlash for just saying that. It's not going to happen. Vision, trust me, it's not going to happen. That's my Ohtani rant for the night. Thank you for letting me get it out, and thank you for the birthday wishes. Really do appreciate that. Again, if you want to get moved to the front of the line, Super Chats are the way to do it. Thank you, Newman. Thank you, Vision. Thank you, Maverick. Remember, if you got more in there, go ahead and send us a Super Chat. We're only going to be on here for about another 10 minutes, maybe 15. So if you got something you want to say, get it off your chest, drop a Super Chat. That's the best way to do it. I actually have to go back to work. That's the only reason we're wrapping this up tonight. Corey Carter says, my needs are a lefty outfielder and a reliever? Yeah, lefty reliever and a backup outfielder. Yeah, I think we're right there. I think that's exactly where I'm at. If they got a backup outfielder, I wouldn't be mad. I've seen some things on Adam Duvall. I don't hate it, but I also don't think it's going to happen. So, we'll see. I'm kind of gauging that. Johnny T with a big super chat. Appreciate that, man. He says, I know a lot of people get on Iglesias, but he has saved 90%. He's 9 out of 10 in saves. I don't know how many it really is, but most of the time, yeah, I would agree with that. I would love to have Josh Hader so they can have another great arm out in bullpen. They've been used a lot. The MVP of the bullpen has been Tonkin, in my opinion. He saved a lot of innings. Yeah, let's talk about Tonkin. Let's talk Tomlin. Anybody remember Josh Tomlin? I do. Let's talk about Tonkin. Tonkin has been a guy that I think he's probably one of Snitker's favorites. And what I mean by that is anytime someone needs to cover multiple innings, he's a Colin McHugh type where he can go out there and just throw and throw. And they're not just throwing innings in the sense of, oh, well, this game's a bust. Let's just throw him out there and, see what happens. No, I mean, he's throwing competitive innings for multiple. He's a, quintessential long relief guy. And I think he's, one of the most underrated people on the team, and it complements the rest of the pen well. He doesn't always, it's not always going to be perfect, but most of the time he's coming in and their runs aren't scoring or minimal damage is done. And I think I mentioned Tomlin because he kind of reminds me of Tomlin, but with better stuff, if that makes sense. I think ultimately when it comes to Tonkin, he's definitely an underrated part of our bullpen. When it comes to Iglesias and it comes to the people criticizing Iglesias, I agree with you. I think people kind of get a little too hard on Iglesias because, like you said, most of the time it's perfectly fine. But then you have the times where it's not perfectly fine, and there's games that are kind of right there, and it's frustrating. The closer is the most difficult job, right? It just is, because you have all that pressure. If you lose the game, you're the worst. If you win the game, whatever, nobody cares, because that's how it was supposed to happen. So it's very stressful. In 2023 so far, he's 3-4 on the year. Not that win-loss matters for a closer. 31 games, 34 strikeouts, 17 saves. I'm looking for his saves opportunity stat. Let's see. Baseball Reference is not being fast tonight. His strikeouts per 9 are 10.9. That's pretty good. His walks are low. Home runs are low. Strikeout per walk rate is fairly okay. I'm really looking for the shutout opportunity stat, but I cannot find it. I don't know how many shutout opportunities, save opportunities he's had. But he's got 17. I think he's probably got 3 or 4 blown saves. And that's really the stat I'm looking for, is blown saves. Sorry, doing this stuff on the fly really gets old after a while. If I can find it. Anyway, I say all that to say Raisel Iglesias has been fine this season. I think he's been fine as a closer. I'll be honest with you, I feel better about him closing than I do Kenley Jansen. Last year, Kenley's been good this year, but last year I was a little bit more concerned. Whenever Kenley took the mound, I definitely feel better now. That said, if you got Hader, I'd feel really good. Because Raisel, as good as he's been, he's got a 4 ERA and 17 saves. Let's compare that to Hader for a second. And a lot of people are like, well, if we got Hader, would Raisel still be the closer? No, and here's why. Hader has a sub-1 ERA, that's .97, 24 saves. So no, Josh Hader would clearly be the closer if we landed him, and it would be a huge get. But, we'll see. And anything else you have to say? Yeah, but no, do I think we could get Josh Hader? I do. I think, honestly, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just very confident that the Braves are going to be in on those conversations, if they're not already. We'll see. All right, scrolling back up. Remember, Super Chats do get your priority. Really appreciate everybody that Super Chatted tonight. Johnny T, really appreciate you. Maverick, Newman, Vision. If I missed anybody, really appreciate you. Super Chats are what keep this channel going. And the other thing that keeps this channel going is you liking the videos. So go make sure to like the videos. Of course, subscribe to the channel. All of that good stuff. Really do appreciate that. Also, go check out the On Deck shop. Guys, if you like the show, I really love you for it. Thank you for that. But go check out the On Deck shop. Get you some On Deck merch. We got pennants. We got stickers. We got shirts. We got hats. We got anything you want that could possibly have an On Deck logo. We have it. And it's in the link down below. You can also find it with the QR code that's always on your screen. So make sure to check that out. And again, if I see you at the ballpark and you have anything on deck related, we are officially best friends. So just keep that in mind. Also, I do want to let you know, I only got a couple more minutes. I do want to let you know if any of you will be at the ballpark on the 31st, that is the trade deadline day, I will be at the game. That is versus the Angels. I don't know if Shohei is pitching, but it'll be interesting if he is. But I will be there for that game. So if you see me, make sure to say hello. Again, that is the 31st. It's only about a week and a half away, maybe 2 weeks away. That is also doubles at the trade deadline day, as the trade deadline day. I'm going to do my best to get home and try to do a video for you that day about whatever the Braves do or don't do at the deadline. But we will see. I don't even know what time game time is. I got asked to go last minute. Let's see. A lot of Josh Hader talking. I like that. Alto, I don't think the Padres would take Grissom unless they will move him to the outfield. And I think that's possible. I think it would be a better fit if the Braves had already kind of experimented with that. That would have been, I think, a little better. But, it is what it is. Corey Carter says, I don't want to trade Grissom. There's something special about that kid, and he's got a bat. I don't disagree with you, and it's going to be a tough one to lose. But I also think if there's anybody that could land Hader, it's Grissom. Corey Carter says Schuster for Hader. I'll be honest with you. I think Schuster has more upside than Grissom does. I'm more along the lines of the other way around. And not to say that I think you're wrong. If it happened, I would give you credit. I don't necessarily think that's the move. But to be honest with you, Grissom is not the only move. I mean, there are other moves that the Braves could make. A couple of guys we've interviewed on the channel might find themselves in a trade. First rounders, low level, years from now type of pitchers could find themselves in a trade. I don't know that I think that would happen. I think the Padres are going to want something that could help them sooner rather than later. But, we'll see. Could Schuster do it? Possibly. I don't know what their starting pitching is, but I think you introduce the idea of trading with the Padres. You see what they – if I'm AA, which I'm not, but if I'm AA, I go in there and I say, hey, this is what we have to offer. What are you willing to give us? Are you willing to get – we want Hader. What do you want for Hader? That's how that conversation starts, and you go from there. But it'll be interesting. Three-way trades happen too. That isn't out of the question. I mean, we saw that with Sean Murphy. So it's not just that you'd be trading with the Padres. You could throw in another team and trade with them. And I'll be honest with you, I'm ignorant to how all that plays out. But that would be an interesting thought too. I think at this point, the point of Hader, my video on Hader, was not that we could trade Grissom. It was that we have enough to trade for Hader. Because I think a lot of people think now that we don't. With the limited prospects that we have, the farm system being where it is, everybody thinks that we have no trade pieces. That isn't true. We have trade pieces. We just have fewer than we used to. But I definitely think a trade could be made, depending on where they are come trade deadline. Corey Carter, Andrew fell off hard after he left us, and the voters hold it against him. I think Andrew should be in, though. He is the greatest defensive player of all time, regardless of position. I don't know if I'd go that far as a guy that's met him. I definitely think he's one of the greatest defensive center fielders. If Willie Mays says so, I say so. A decade of Gold Gloves and 400-plus homers should get you in the Hall of Fame. That's my take on Andrew Jones. And I will continue to be that voice saying that Andrew Jones belongs in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I have no problem with that. I'm super glad Crime Dog made it in. But Andrew Jones belongs. And until he is in, I will not shut up about it. Let's see. I like the Hall of Perception line. I do like that. Let's see. I'm trying to remember Super Chats, guys. They get you in front of the line, trying to kind of weed through and see what we got in here. All right, Easy Tiger says, my take is Ohtani gets hurt, you're out one starter and top hitter, it's a two-man loss. That's kind of my point. That's one of my hesitations. Easy Tiger goes on to say, Hader is the pick man, you're right, Ohtani in Atlanta doesn't make sense. And that's the thing, folks outside of Atlanta probably do think it makes sense, but being here, watching this play out over the years, watching the way the Braves operate for a number of years now, it just doesn't feel right. On top of all the the real facts that I've given, it just doesn't feel right. And I'm not saying that I would be upset if we got him. It just doesn't give a Braves feel to it. And I know that sounds like kind of, out there, but it just doesn't feel like that would happen. I would, again, just be very surprised. And in a good way, but very, very surprised. The only way I can see Ohtani coming is through free agency on a one-year deal, but the probability of that happening is minuscule. Yeah, I mean, the one-year deal thing, right? Like, Josh Donaldson did one. Marcell Ozuna did one. There's been players to do that, but they were all coming off of an injury or they needed to prove themselves further. Ohtani doesn't need that. He's not injured. He doesn't need to prove himself. And if anybody else is going to offer him $600 million across 10 years, or what we'd probably be giving him is like $60 million for the 1 year or something like that, he has no reason to take it. Other than maybe I can win a ring. But guys, let's be real with ourselves. He could get just as equal of a chance from an outsider perspective with the Dodgers. You could get just as much of a chance to win a ring with the Dodgers on the West Coast. The Angels certainly aren't the answer, but the Dodgers might be. Charles Pruitt, do you think there's a chance to get Jorge Soler? I do not. I don't think there's a spot for him, really. I don't think the Braves would be interested in that. And I think he's got another couple of years, and I also don't think Miami's going to give him up considering they're in second. They're certainly not going to trade him to a team in the division. Granted, they did do that with Duvall in 2021, but that was a little bit different of a situation. They were kind of plummeting at the time. They're not really plummeting now. They still have hopes for a wild card. Let's see. I only got a couple more minutes, guys. Okay. Let's see. Don't trade J.R. Ritchie. I complete agree. I don't want to trade any of those guys that I keep in contact with. I'm rooting for all of them to be big Braves. All right, this is going to be the last one of the night. Maverick says, I keep hearing about Jordan, Montgomery, Graveman, Hendricks, and Hader, then Duvall. What do you think? All right, well, you threw kind of a lot at me there. You threw kind of a lot. All right, Jordan Montgomery, I don't think we'd be going for a starter. Not he's a lefty, but I don't think we'd be going for a starter. I think if we were going to do that, it would have been where we just got Yanni Chirinos. I think that would have been that move. Graveman, good reliever. We could get him. I think he will be sold. I think there will be a lot of people in on him, but he is a right-hander. I don't think that we need that. I think we need lefties, and I think that I would rather get Hader in that. But if we got him, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I don't know where his stats currently sit either, though. Hendricks, that's where I'll be honest with you. The White Sox are going to be sellers, no doubt about it, and I would be in for Hendricks. I think he's righty, though, isn't he? I think he's a righty. Hader is my guy. That's the one I think we're going to get. Duvall, I don't hate it. I don't. There's nothing telling me it's a certainty by any stretch, but I certainly don't hate it. And if it happened, I would be happy. But as Corey Carter says, and I think he put it well, he said Rosario plays best when the lights are the brightest. He needs to stay in left. And if you don't believe me, check out this video I have of Eddie Rosario hitting a 3-run homer against the Los Angeles Dodgers in the NLCS. Anytime I get a chance to show that video, I pretty much do. Anyway, with all that said, that's where we're going to wrap it up, I think. If you have any other questions, guys, feel free. My Twitter is always on the screen. You can find it there. You can find me on Instagram. Send me a message, and I'll tell you what I think. Maybe I'll include it in a video if it's quality, if it's up to stuff. But no, a good day to be a Braves fan, no doubt about that. Again, Braves beat the Brewers 4-2 today. Fred McGriff inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, and they have an 11.5 game lead in the NL East. It doesn't get much better than that. For years I wanted days like this, and now we finally got them, and I don't know what to do with it. So, with all that said, again, thank you for checking out the channel. Thank you for liking the video. If you haven't done it, do it on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are so close to 5,000 subs, and you guys continue to follow, continue to subscribe, all that stuff. And guys, if you have a Braves friends, if you have friends that like the Braves, whatever you want to call them, go out there and send them this channel. Let them know we're here, because we do talk, and I do my best to give you real answers, not ones that are going to, like the Ohtani videos I talked about, they're going to be clickbait. Go check us out, guys. Also, if you want, there's been a lot of talk about Hader in the chat tonight. Go check out the video that I did on him in depth, where I really analyzed it and looked at it. I just put a link in the chat for you. Go check that out. We'd really appreciate it. Of course, like that video as well. But one thing you need to do before you leave is like this video. And so, of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And again, go check out the On Deck shop. You guys have been buying from that left and right. Really do appreciate it. It continues to sell. And hopefully we'll see a couple of you guys in some of these t-shirts one of these days. So, again, go check that out. And as always, thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time right here at On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support. Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support. Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.
Chipper Jones went to the Hall of Fame this past year. Like I said, Hall of Famers feels like every year for the past 5 or 6 years. You got a couple more on the ballot that were teammates of yours, not just on the Braves. You have Barry Bonds as well. Who would you like to see go in this year while the voting's going on?
Man, I tell you, two guys that probably some of the best hitters I played with, and probably the best player I've ever seen play the game was with Barry.
Yeah.
I mean, whether he did steroids or not, before, after, or whatever, I personally can't. I don't know. I wasn't there, but that dude could hit. He was the most feared hitter in the game. I think best hitter all time ever. I played with him my last year when I think he was 40, and I mean, just lightning's hands, great eye. And Fred McGriff, again, Fred McGriff was one of the most feared hitters in the game for 10, 15 years or whatever it was, the whole time he was playing. And a lot of home runs, a lot of just a great at-bats. He drew walks. There's some guys in there now that don't have as good as numbers, so he played in the steroid era, obviously, in my opinion, didn't do anything like that. So I think both those guys deserve to go in. But, it's just up to the riders and stuff. But I know those two guys were very, very good hitters.
Did Fred McGriff teach you the high finish, or did you teach Fred McGriff the high finish?
Oh, gosh. I swing like that. The thing is, Freddie always gives me a hard time, but I swing that way before they brought his sorry butt over from Toronto or wherever he came from. But, I actually had a high finish because of a wrist injury, because what happened is before I'd have two hands, and I had some problems. I was getting some cortisone injections into my I think it was my left wrist. So when I had to finish, I always try to let go. Mm-hmm. So that proceeded to come around the same time he was there. So, but yeah, we always joke each other about that when we see him. He goes, "He stole my finish. He stole my finish." But if you look at the home run that I hit, I think one of my first home runs, I had a high finish, and that was before Freddie even got traded there. So sorry, Freddie. I bet you he probably saw my swing and wanted to come up with something cool like mine.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.